Greetings, my friends. You're watching the Ruslan Belov channel, and today we'll take a detailed look at the situation on the Ukrainian front as of October 14th, 2025. This day has been packed with major developments, so let's get straight to the point. Let's start with the line of direct combat contact, the Zaporizhzhia sector, where the Russian army continues its offensive. A large number of reports are coming from this direction, and the first thing worth noting is that for the second or even third consecutive day, no territorial advance by Russian ground forces has been recorded on the maps. However, the lack of visible changes does not mean there is no movement. Most likely, the fighting continues, but the clashes have become extremely intense, especially around the settlements of Poltavka and Uspenivka. For that reason, map updates have been temporarily paused. Cartographers are probably waiting for the full clearing of these areas before making corrections. On recent footage, we can see Russian aircraft using guided bombs to strike fortified Ukrainian positions near Uspenivka. At the same time, it has become known that one of the most combat-ready Ukrainian drone units, known as Magyar's Birds, has been redeployed to the Zaporizhzhia front. These formations are considered elite and are roughly comparable in status to the Russian Rubicon unit. Their arrival has likely slowed the tempo of Russia's offensive as Ukrainian forces have strengthened their defenses and stepped up drone activity. However, Ukraine has effectively lost the initiative along the Vovcha River. The Ukrainian side is currently attempting to regain control over its southern bank, but every armored vehicle that approaches is quickly destroyed by Russian FPV drones. It seems that Russia has temporarily shifted tactics, moving to a more cautious strategy focused on long-range strikes. Drone operators are now doing most of the work, targeting Ukrainian equipment and, quite possibly, the operators of Magyar's Birds themselves. In any case, the situation remains fluid, and in the coming days we can expect new reports concerning both Uspenivka and Poltavka. Next, we move to the Novopavlivka sector of the front. Here, significant adjustments have appeared. Several analytical and mapping platforms report an expansion of Russian control on the northern bank of the Vovcha River, between the settlements of Ivanivka and Filia. Updated maps suggest that the Russian army has concentrated substantial forces on the Ukrainian side of the river and, according to experts, is preparing to strike Novopavlivka from the southwest. In addition, Russian units are finishing the clearing of so-called grey zones around Andriivka and Klevtsova. Earlier, Ukrainian forces had briefly managed to push Russian troops back, but now the situation has reversed. On the eastern flank of Novopavlivka, Russian forces are reported to be advancing along field roads. Recent footage shows FPV drones delivering precision strikes on enemy positions along tree lines. Despite Ukrainian efforts, Russian troops are gradually encircling Novopavlivka, closing the distance to the town itself. Now we turn to the Pokrovsk direction, the area that has generated the loudest and most important developments of recent days. The Russian army has established full fire control over the entire Pokrovsk agglomeration. Every road leading in or out of the city is now under the constant observation and fire of Russian artillery, aviation, and drone operators. Any attempt to enter or leave the area without losses is practically impossible. Reports today indicate that Russian troops have improved their positions all around Pokrovsk's perimeter. The most significant gains are recorded on the city's western outskirts. Territories west of Pokrovsk, including part of its western districts, are now under Russian control. A large grey zone remains between the settlements of Kotlina, Pokrovsk, and Zveryov. Comparing today's map with yesterday's clearly shows that many fortified areas have fallen under Russian control. Furthermore, confirmations have appeared showing that Russian units strengthened their positions in the settlement of Rodinske. Over the past several days, maps for this direction have been updated repeatedly. While on October 12th the front line seemed relatively stable, later reports confirmed Russian consolidation in the eastern part of Rodinske. Today it is reported that the entire settlement of Krasny Lyman and the southeastern part of Rodinske are fully under Russian control. Assault operations are ongoing, and some sources indicate that Russian forces are trying to secure positions along the T-515 road, which connects the Pokrovsk agglomeration with northern directions. But the most significant events are unfolding east of the city of Myrnohrad. where a major offensive is currently underway. According to preliminary information, the operation in this area began around October 9th or 10th. Here's how the map looked before the start of the offensive. And by the 11th, the first corrections began to appear. Pro-Russian sources reported progress by Russian units, and on October 12th, geolocated footage confirmed their presence in the settlements of Balahan and Kazatske. On October 13th, the Russian Ministry of Defense officially announced that Kazatske was completely under Russian control and that some units had entrenched themselves on the eastern outskirts of Mirnohrad, most likely near the Dmitriev mine. On October 14th, today, the ministry confirmed the full clearing of Balahan. It is highly probable that tomorrow we will hear reports of the capture of Promin, after which the Russian army will be able to continue its advance into southern Mirnohrad, moving toward the mines and the fortified zone known as the Mirnohrad Citadel. Essentially, a decisive assault has begun on this sector, with the goal of fully clearing the southern part of the city and preparing for further battles for northern Mirnohrad and Pokrovsk. The situation for Ukrainian troops here is nearing a critical stage. Judging by the dynamics of the fighting and multiple confirmations from the field, the armed forces of Ukraine may soon lose control of the entire Pokrovsk agglomeration. It's no longer a matter of weeks, but rather of months before that outcome, given the steady pace of the Russian advance. Now we move on to the next area, the Shakov pocket, where Russian forces are conducting active assault operations. Since early morning, pro-Ukrainian sources have been publishing footage from objective control drones showing Russian attacks in this zone. The videos reveal numerous armored vehicles, tanks, infantry fighting vehicles, and assault troops, breaking through Ukrainian defensive lines, deploying infantry, and attempting to consolidate their gains. Some of this footage appears to have been filmed directly inside the settlement of Shakov itself. All evidence suggests that Russian troops have breached the Ukrainian defenses and established positions on the eastern outskirts of Shakov, on the side located along the Russian-held bank of the Kazeny Torets River. Judging by the available information, the Ukrainian defensive line in this area has been broken. At this moment, Ukrainian units are likely forced to retreat northward toward the settlements of Toretska and Sofievka, where they apparently intend to establish a new defensive line. However, Russian artillery continues to strike these areas, and assault units are preparing for further advances. If the Ukrainian army loses control of Shakov, Russian forces will gain a stable bridgehead for subsequent offensives toward Dobropilya and beyond. Meanwhile, Ukrainian and neutral sources report that the armed forces of Ukraine have launched a series of counterattacks west of the Shakov pocket, around the settlements of Volne, Shakivka, and Ivanivka. According to these reports, Ukrainian troops managed to slightly improve their tactical positions. However, it is clear that the objective of these actions is not to eliminate the Shakov salient itself. The main goal of the Ukrainian army is to slow down the pace of the Russian advance, divert part of the enemy's forces and resources, and gain a few additional days or weeks to reinforce the defenses of the entire Shakov area. We'll be watching closely to see whether the Ukrainian side can maintain its positions near Shakov and Volne. It's likely that the Russian army will have to temporarily reallocate some resources to stabilize the situation before resuming its offensive operations along the full perimeter of the Shakov pocket. Now we move on to the Siversk-Lyman direction, where the fighting continues with the same intensity. Today there are reports that the assault on the settlement of Dronivka has begun. Russian troops are attacking from several directions at once. It is already known that most of the defensive strongpoints around the village have come under Russian control. Judging by the pace of the advance, the Russian Ministry of Defense and several pro-Russian sources may soon confirm the complete capture of this settlement. Significant developments are also being recorded on the Lyman sector of the front. The updated map shows Russian progress between the settlements of Drobyshev and Stavki. For comparison, yesterday's map showed a relatively stable front line, but according to new information, Russian forces managed to break through Ukrainian defenses in this area and advance several kilometers deeper. Some reports even claim that Russian units have entrenched themselves on the northwestern outskirts of Lyman itself, although there has been no official confirmation yet. Nevertheless, this news has been widely discussed across analytical platforms. It is safe to say that the situation in this direction continues to deteriorate for the Ukrainian side. The Russian army is methodically reducing the distance to Lyman, gradually occupying more advantageous positions. In response, Ukrainian troops launched a series of counterattacks in the area of the settlement of Serednya Shandriholova. The published footage shows Ukrainian infantry, supported by armored vehicles, attempting to strike and halt the Russian advance near Derelov and Drobyshev. According to field reports, Ukrainian forces briefly managed to land troops and gain a foothold, but during subsequent clearing operations, the Russian army fully re-established control over the area. Moving further, now to the Siversk sector of the front. There have been no major changes over the past day, but reports indicate that the Ukrainian army has completely withdrawn from the pocket located in the northern and northwestern parts of Kupiansk. Ukrainian forces have retreated southward, toward the areas of southern Kupiansk and Kupiansk-Uzlovyi. In all likelihood, this sector of the front will soon be fully marked under Russian control. Everything suggests that the battle for the western part of Kupiansk is nearing its conclusion. That's all for now, dear friends. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and share your thoughts in the comments. Take care and see you in the next update.